On October 7th, in the immediate aftermath of the latest vicious attack against Israeli civilians by Hamas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he would kill all members of Hamas. It is not a new threat. Consider this moment back in 2004, after a Hamas suicide bombing.
Israeli security sources say they decided last night to destroy the whole Hamas leadership.
Palestinian civilians always pay a high price for Israel's retaliatory attacks on Gaza. This pattern goes back to the very beginning of Hamas. Hamas was founded in 1987 by the charismatic quadriplegic preacher Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, who had a fanatical following in the Palestinian territories, and especially in Gaza, where he grew up. Yassin gave many TV interviews in which he made a series of controversial statements. He said, Israel is targeting Palestinian civilians, so Israeli civilians should be targeted. He claimed that any reconciliation with the Jews is a crime. And finally, we chose this road, and it will end with martyrdom or victory. In 1989, Yassin was arrested by Israel and sentenced to life in prison for ordering the killing of alleged Palestinian collaborators. But he was released in 1997 in a prisoner exchange. As a condition of his release, he had agreed to stop calling for attacks on Israel, but he immediately violated that condition by encouraging suicide bombings against Israeli citizens. In 2004, a Palestinian mother of two recorded this Hamas suicide message and then blew herself up at the Eretz border crossing into Israel, killing 4 civilians. When Yassin publicly praised the Hamas attack, Israel's defense minister announced that he was marked for death. In March 2004, an Israeli Apache helicopter fired Hellfire missiles at his entourage. Yassin and his 2 bodyguards were killed, along with several bystanders. His funeral was a raucous demonstration of Palestinian rage and demands for revenge. The extrajudicial killing was widely condemned around the world. Mark Regev is a senior advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
He was very much the leader of the organization, telling, that it's good to kill innocent Israeli civilians and to take out the commander of a terrorist organization that is legitimate in international behavior.
Longtime Palestinian-American journalist Rami Khouri now teaches at the American University in Beirut.
These groups are needed to achieve the rights of the community that are denied to them, whether it's colonialism or predatory neighbors or whatever it might be. And assassinating a leader doesn't have much impact. It slows down the process for maybe half a year or a year, but there are many, many people in waiting, ready to take over.
The point that is always made is that you kill one, somebody else takes his place 10 minutes later.
Of course, that is said. But I don't think there was anyone who could replace Ahmed Yassin. He was the founder of the organization. He had a special status. And I think it's also an important deterrent.
Hamas claimed credit for a series of bombs in buses and restaurants that killed dozens of Israeli citizens through the 1990s. The bombs were mostly made from a unique formula of acetone and detergent, the handiwork of a legendary bomb maker named Yahya Ayash, known as the Engineer. Israeli agents finally tracked him down in 1996 and arranged to deliver him a new cell phone containing an explosive charge. When they heard him answer the new cell phone, they exploded the charge, blowing his head off. Today there are numerous streets in the West Bank and Gaza named after the Engineer. He is considered a national hero.
People outside of Palestine may not like them, may see them as terrorists, whatever, but for their own people, they are widely respected because, again, of their commitment to using all possible means to achieve their national rights after having tried all other means, peaceful means, negotiations, compromises that didn't achieve anything.
Of course, people who support terrorism found him a very attractive figure, just as Osama bin Laden had many people across the Middle East who liked him. The most important thing is that we got him in the end.
The call everywhere here on the West Bank is to protect the Palestinian refugee camps and for revenge. Marlon Fletcher, NBC News.
Former NBC News correspondent Martin Fletcher covered the Middle East for almost 4 decades, including the familiar Israeli government threat.
Israel says it'll kill the whole Hamas leadership. You know, Prime Minister Netanyahu has threatened each time there's been a cross-border skirmish or mini-war with Hamas, which is about 5 or 6 times in the last 20 years. Each time he said, we're going to destroy Hamas, we're going to kill the leadership. He's never done it. He's never been able to do it.
The bombings of Israeli civilians continued through the 2000s, this time the handiwork of Ayash's disciple, Mohammed Al-Deif, called the Guest because he supposedly sleeps in a different location every night. Israel fired missiles at Al-Deif on multiple occasions, but didn't kill him. They did kill his wife, young son, and daughter, who were given a hero's funeral, covered on Al Jazeera TV. Al-Deif was said to lose an arm, a leg, and an eye in the attacks.
He's been #1 on Israel's hit list for several decades, and they just can't kill the guy. So therefore, among Palestinians, of course, he's a hero.
Al-Deif is said to be the architect of the October 7th attacks against Israeli citizens, which he announced with a rare appearance on Hamas TV the morning of the attack.
هذا يومكم لتفهموا هذا العدو المجرم أنه قد انتهى زمنه اقتلوهم حيث ثقفتموهم.
When they say we refuse to accept Israel's existence in any borders, they mean it. And when they say every Jew is a legitimate target for murder, they mean it. And anyone who had any illusions about Hamas, I think October 7th was a slap in the face, a wake-up call.
We're in the situation now where the whole world is talking about Hamas, and that to them is a sign of success.
Hamas was elected in 2006, but the next year they executed or banished their more moderate Palestinian opponents and have run a repressive autocratic regime in Gaza ever since. Hamas thrived partially because the Israeli government saw it as a useful way to divide Palestinians and undermine the creation of a Palestinian state. Is it actually possible to decapitate and destroy Hamas now?
Yes, and there's an example. ISIS had territorial control of parts of Iraq and Syria, and with a very, very massive campaign by a coalition of countries, ISIS was removed.
But the reality is that you can attack the Palestinians in Gaza, you can destroy their society, you can try to starve them to death as they're doing now, you can assassinate their leadership, you can blockade them, you can put thousands of them in jail, you can kill 1,000 children as they have in the last week or so. 1,000 children died in Palestine through Israeli attack. And that's only going to spark greater resistance down the road.
Is your sense that public opinion in Israel is very strongly in favor of an invasion of Gaza?
Certainly there's united about the need to punish Hamas for this, to deter them from ever wanting to or being able to do it again, and to guarantee security for its own citizens. If that can only be achieved by a ground invasion, then there's probably a lot of support for it, but it's very reluctant support because everybody knows that to send the army into a built-up area against highly trained fighters who are expecting this to happen is going to be very bloody for everybody.